Oh, it is. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I'm not an IT person at all.
If for some reason
Everyone, I'll call the February 17th, 2023 meeting of the VRE Operations Board to order. And let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alfred.
Here.
Ms. Bagley. Here. Ms. Bailey. Present. Ms. Long.
Here?
Ms. Crystal. Here. Ms. Franklin. Ms. Perry. Ms. Hayes. Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Ms. Lawson. Here. Mr. McLaughlin. Ms. Madison. Here. Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Stewart. And Mr. Walkinshaw.
Here.
There we have it.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Bomke has asked to participate remotely for this reason due to a personal, for this meeting due to a personal reason. She's out of town visiting family. There being a quorum physically present, is there a motion and a second to allow Vice Chair Bomke to participate electronically?
Moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Welcome, Ms. Bomke. Rich will give us a safety moment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just our safety moment this morning, just a reminder of our primary and secondary evacuation routes outside this room. Those evacuation routes are clear. Again, our primary would be out the double wooden doors in the back of the room to the stairwell and the elevator bank. That'll office out on the first floor. We want to come into the entrance doors. The exits are clearly marked, and we want to muster outside of the well, today we can muster under the canopy there as long as we're not evacuating for a fire or something like that. So just want to remind everybody there, we've got Robert is going to be our primary 911. Chris will be his backup, and then Sarah Higgins in the corner is going to be our primary AED CPR, and I'm going to back her up from here as well. Just wanted to point out, of course, we did send out a note to you yesterday about just from a situational awareness. Hopefully there was no issues this morning. It didn't look like there was much activity out there. I just want to thank Bob and his team for putting some extra security out there and stuff, just to make sure that folks coming in and out of this facility are safe. So with that, that's my safety moment, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Next item is approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda? To approve the agenda?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Next item is approval of the January 20th, 2023 minutes. Are there any corrections or amendments to those minutes?
Approval of the minutes submitted.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. All right, welcome everyone to our February 2023 Operations Board meeting. Just a reminder that we are live streaming the meeting and there are mics, I think there's new mics maybe, throughout the room. So please keep your side conversations to a minimum. I want to thank folks for responding to the survey about the committee assignments and interests. And members have been assigned based on the responses that we have received, and you'll see that listed on the screen. We didn't get responses from everybody. And as you can see, we do have some gaps, specifically really need folks to step up for the legislative committee and the nominating committee. I see Ms. Bailey volunteering herself.
Mr. Chairman, I did respond. Maybe I can send it again today, but I wanted to be back on the CEO and the legislative.
Okay, great. You're on.
No, I'll resend what I sent. No problem.
Sure. So between now and next month, please reach out to Rich and let him know if you're interested, if you have any concerns with these assignments and specifically other folks who's willing to serve on the legislative and nominating committee. I'm not going to appoint chairs of those committees. I would prefer that each committee at their first meeting appoint their own chair, preferably someone who's pretty confident they'll be able to participate in most of that committee's meeting. So reach out to Rich to volunteer for any changes to those assignments. Any discussion or questions about that? Mike?
I just want to note that I'd like to let the jurisdiction members have be in their own committees and speak without worrying about what the state's going to think. But for one committee, I'm happy to serve on is the CEO-CLO evaluation because I deal with them probably on a more regular basis than the rest of the board. And I think those who were on the search committee last time, I thought I brought some help to that. So if you need me on that, happy to help. I do usually comment, but
Yeah, I think that would be absolutely. If you're willing to do that again, I think that'd be wonderful. And it's going to be it's always an important committee, but particularly important this year because as we've discussed, we want to establish the 360 review process this year that the operations board has discussed for several years now. So it's going to be an even heavier workload than it was in the past. So more folks involved is great. Okay. Other questions or thoughts on that? Okay, we'll turn it over to Rich for the CEO's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under our safety topic for the month, just wanted to make everybody aware, staff attended via our Lunch and Learn series, attended some really good training, really good briefing from TSA at our headquarters building. I say really good. It was very informal, but yet very informative, and it provided us opportunity to really ask some questions. And the bomb tech guys brought in some really nice props and stuff to show us what nefarious actors and stuff are doing out there as it relates to hiding bombs. I did put a card in front of you there if this was something that they were handing out, and it just depicts on one side 8 signs of terrorism. And then, of course, the other side, it says, what makes a suspicious package? And you've heard us say in here, you've heard other places, it's back to that. It's that foundational, see something, say something. So anyway, just wanted to share those with you. They were giving those out during our training. So on-time performance for the month of January, system-wide, somewhat consistent with the previous couple of months. We still haven't been able to break back into our target of 90%. It's just a breakdown over the last 3 months. As you can see, we still hovering in that 14-15 minute in terms of average delay minutes. That hasn't necessarily spiked on us. And again, the primary culprits is the injection Our monthly ridership is it rebounded in January. See from the downtick starting in November and into December. And this is something historically that we've seen over the holidays. It's rebounded up. And February is actually even starting off pretty strong. I think we had yesterday, the day before yesterday, we had one of our highest ridership days since back in pre-fair September. So, and then of course, average daily ridership is total daily ridership. I'm going to ask Mr. Schwartz to come up and been over there. I know he's been glued to his phone to give us any kind of real-time, meaningful update, particularly what's going on in Richmond, and if there's anything going up on the other side up on the hill. Feel free to update the team as well.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, as you know, we had there's two bills actually in Richmond that would give us a 3.5% of the mass transit fund direct allocation. Both those bills passed out of their respective houses. The House bill has also passed the Senate. The Senate bill will likely get voted on today. We expect that to pass as well. They have the exact same language, so they won't need to be discussed any further. They'll go right to the governor for his signature. So that's a pretty good win for us. We think that's the right move to have this direct allocation. So we're definitely happy about that. It also has other language about WMATA in it, but I won't go into the details about that because I haven't been paying that much attention to the WMATA side. All of the other bills we were tracking are pretty much didn't make it out of the House. There were some procurement bills. We did pay attention to, there was one, it's called TPOF. It's basically, there's an amount of money they wanted to set aside for the governor to be able to spend for economic development. The money would have come out of the transportation, or will come out of the Transportation Trust Fund. Both those bills are continuing to move through. There's I think it's 100 million on the House bill and 300 million in the Senate bill. So there'll be some discussion about what the actual amount ends up being. And I believe the intent, the first intent anyway, is for improvements for the area where we hope the FBI headquarters is going to end up. That was a topic of discussion this week. And speaking of which, we on the federal side, we have been in contact. I'm supposed to have a call next week with the staffer on one of the T&I committees, subcommittees that deals with facilities. And we were going to have a discussion with them just to mention all of the positive transportation effects in that area, that it would be really good if the FBI headquarters ended up there. So continuing to lobby on that too. And that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions, and I won't take it personally that there wasn't that much interest in the legislative committee.
Well, you've succeeded so well, Joe, that it's, no, I'll just, I think last month I said it's too early to pop the champagne on direct allocation. It's probably still technically too early, but I think we can take the champagne out of the chiller at this point. And it really is has been a great team effort. So thank you and the legislative committee and MVTC and PRTC and our team in Richmond that really did a great job, and Director DeBrule especially for her steadfast support and advocacy. And it looked dire at some points in the process, but we're very close to getting what I think is a great outcome for VRE. So congratulations to you. Anything else for Joe on the legislative committee? Okay, Rich.
And that is the end of my report, unless anybody has any questions.
All right. If there's nothing else for Rich, we'll move on to public comment. VRE accepts public comments both in person and electronically via the VRE website. Members of the public wishing to make public comments have 3 minutes and should state their full name and the jurisdiction they live in. And written comments submitted before 8 a.m. this morning will be forwarded to the members of the board, read into the minutes, and attached to the official minutes. Do we have any members of the public here who would like to address the board? Madam Clerk, do we have any electronically submitted comments?
Mr. Chair, we do not.
Okay. Next item is a consent agenda. Board members have a consent agenda in their packet. Is there a motion to approve items 9A and 9B of the consent agenda?
Agenda submitted. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. The consent agenda is passed. Next item, action items. First is action item A. Rich, will you introduce the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, action item 10A, we're seeking authorization to issue an MEC 7 task order for the National Transit Database and Asset Management Reporting Phase number 9. And this, by receiving this authorization, this continues to further develop and implement our transit asset management program plan. And of course, this also has work involved in mandatory reporting within the National Transit Database. I will say that last month in an information item, just a calendar year 2022 review program. And so that's actually gives you kind of a bird's eye look at what this effort is. And of course, it's required as we continue to use federal funds. So that is my summary, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any questions for Rich on that item? Is there a motion to approve action item A?
Before approval, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Action item B. Rich, will you introduce the item?
Chair. Okay, so this is 10B is authorization to execute a contract for program management consulting services with Hill International of Philadelphia, PA, in the amount stated in the resolution for a base year and 3 option years for a total of 4 years, for a total amount not to exceed $6 million. As the background states, we did a competitive solicitation for the program management consulting services. And I just will say this is the first program management consulting services that we've procured. You're all familiar with our general engineering consulting task order agreements, mechanical engineering consulting agreements, and our general planning. We're in this phase, and maybe this would be good to look at. We're in this phase of, we're coming out of a lot of projects that are coming out of development, they're going in design. We're really coming in this phase where we have a lot of different things going on out there. So this contract is really primarily an extension of our staff to help manage and champion these projects forward. I will say it's a little fuzzy, but if you see the blocks in blue, those are the projects that are under development, which is generally in the environmental phase and some conceptual or preliminary engineering. Of course, the boxes that are in yellow, that's yellow to me anyway. Those are in the engineering phase. And of course, the orange box, which is where we're all trying to get to, is that construction phase. So this map shows we had 3 construction projects going on our Fredericksburg corridor. Of course, we did want to go ahead and anticipate in near anticipation of starting the Manassas Park parking garage project, kind of shade that one over to the orange side as well. So anyway, a lot going on, and that's my summary, Mr. Chair.
Okay, questions for Rich on this item, Mr. Kelly?
Mr. Chairman, no real good questions on this, other than I want to thank Vice Chair Baumke for the email, I guess the questions you sent out. And Rich, you did a great job responding back to her very quickly. it kind of touches on an issue in presenting information with regards to an expenditure, and this is kind of, I'll call it a large expenditure. And I realize we all deal with information differently. Some of us have staffs that can do work for us, others of us do not have staffs to do it. In this particular case, I approach every vote. If I get a phone call from somebody, I got to be able to explain to them, we did this because, and I can't necessarily say I did this because staff recommended it. If we're taking an expenditure on something like this, whenever we reference another action by the board, if there's at all way we can have that attached. I mean, I know I can look it up, but I don't have a lot of time. It's just nice to have it all there in one package where I can swing down, okay, here was the original thing we voted on in October, blah, 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 blah. And if we could get a little bit more information on, we picked this group because as per your answers, we've dealt with it before, they've got a good track record, something that I've got some talking points. And I think for some of the newer members, it's also an issue of, understanding how we do things and how does this fit in. And we've had this conversation, and Katie, you know this before, where we have it at PRTC the same way, how present information without it becoming too much of you spending your entire time trying to work out providing us all this information. But going forward, I would ask, if at all possible, and I would defer to my other board members too, when we're doing a procurement like this, if we can have a little bit more, again, I think you need to look at it from our perspective. I get a phone call from somebody, I've got to give them an answer, not just say, oh, you need to call, which frankly doesn't make us look very good. If we, hey, yeah, we voted to spend or commit to technically $1.5 million, but I can't tell you why we did it, other than staff told us it was. And then a little bit of perspective. And again, any documents that we reference in here, they can be part of the package, just so we can go back and say, okay, now I remember that we did this. That's just, unless anybody has a super problem with that, that's, I think, part of the concern that came out of this exchange. And I thought it was a very good exchange. And again, I'm not criticizing in any way, because Rich, you were right on the ball, and I was amazed with the time and effort you put into this response to this question. Good.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, Mr. Kelly, and especially because this is new, right? So this isn't a typical task order that we would approve that's consistent with what we've done in the past. So it's deserving of a little bit more explication. I guess along those lines, a question, Rich, maybe you can share. Why is it? I suspect I know some of the answers, but why did we make the decision to procure these services from a consulting firm rather than beefing up our in-house capabilities to try to take this on? Because these are going to be going on for many years, a lot of these projects.
I'll start with somewhat of a simplified response, is that similar to our other consulting agreements and stuff like that. Well, let me just stick to this one, the PMC agreement. When this gives us the ability to reach out to very, in some cases unique and or specific skill sets. Okay. So we may need a very specific skill set on a project or a program or something like that for a short duration of time. Okay. So when you start adding all that, then you try, what those different skill sets are, and then you try to convert that over to, an FTE or a full-time equivalent. It does in some cases, or a lot of cases, it reduces your flexibility and stuff like that. But I will also say, from our history, we've also it started out as consulting agreements, and we had eventually, basically, we created FT because of that very same point, is that it was, there are these skill sets that are required, these functions required long-term. And so instead of paying a consultant, we brought them on as an FTE. So it's a combination of things. Right now, where we're at, is, and again, by awarding this contract, again, it's a base year with 3 option years. This gives us some time to sort of grow into and actually get slightly ahead of a lot of those different programs and stuff that we have going out there, and gives us an opportunity to reassess that from a long-term perspective.
Okay. Other questions on this item? All right, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair?
I was waiting for you. Go ahead, Ms. Bomke.
Yeah, so thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to participate remotely today. And I do want to thank you, Rich, for your very timely response and answering my questions. And I would just like to echo other comments that have been made that I think for in the future, we definitely need a lot more detailed information on something like this as it relates to the scope of what we're entering to this contract for. Because as you know, Rich, you know, our lens is very different than yours every day. And you understand what you're doing and what's taking place and what contracts you're going to enter into and what skill set you have and you don't have in-house. So I would just, but we don't know all of that. And so, you know, as Mr. Kelly said, when we talk to constituents, we've got to explain to them, you know, why did you vote on that? It was $1.5 million. While we may only enter into a $500,000 contract, we're giving you guidance up to $1.5 million, even though all of those task orders are going to come back to the board. But as you know, once they come back to the board, usually that's kind of set in stone, and by the time we vote. But anyway, I appreciate your response and just would like to have additional information on an item like this in the future. So thank you.
Supervisor Bailey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I thank you, Ms. Pomke, for that, because I'm looking, I hesitated because I was looking at this and like, nah, but I want to put this out there for Potomac Shores. How does that relate? Because I know it is a private developer's project, and we can take this offline, Rich, however you want to do it, but I just wanted my colleagues to kind of understand what that means when we see things like this. I know, but we just need a little update on what that means in terms of the progression. And we can do it later.
Potomac Shores.
Yes.
Specifically. Well, let me answer it this way. So
Yes.
once again, Potomac Shores is a program out there, obviously a little different than what we're used to.
A little different. That's
A little different than what we're used to. But you know, and right now our staff, our existing staff are able to take on that liaison role that we've been playing. But what a contract like this does for us is that at some point where that's no longer feasible and the best use of our staff's time, where we can bring in somebody off of a PMC contract that can still provide that same level of expertise for the team at Potomac Shores, and our team can spread out and go do some other things. That's what this contract does for us. And as you know, anything we do with Potomac Shores is reimbursable to us. So this is not a direct expense to us as well. So
Thank you. You said all the right words. I appreciate that from a standpoint of it is an unusual project. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Lawson?
Thank you. So actually it's up to $6 million, not $1.5 million, the way I read it, correct? Because you have options to extend it. So it's really, a couple of board members have said $1.5 million, but it's really a $6 million expense.
$1.5 million a year maximum. Right. Over the life of the contract, it could be 4 years.
If the options
If the
are
options are exercised.
Right.
That's correct.
But considering, that's a great slide. Considering everything you have going on, you know, and I agree with you, Matt. It's great to spoon feed us like all this background information, especially, but I'm not surprised that you need to do this, because I would imagine it'd be incredibly difficult to hire all this technical expertise on just the VRE staff alone. That's what I'm hearing you say, right?
Maybe
difficult and maybe not necessarily cost effective, because
Right.
again, because of the different skill sets. And as we continue to move on, I will point out, at some point, everything you see on this map here, you know, there won't be any blue. There won't be any yellow.
Right.
They'll all be in construction. Guess what? Different skill sets.
Yeah.
Different
Yeah.
backgrounds,
So-
different things going on.
So not to put Mike on the spot, but I'm thinking Mike can weigh in here and assure the board that what I think, and I don't want to speak for you, this is very standard in the industry.
I was going to say, we actually have a contract ourselves. That's the previous contract. Our dollar amounts higher. We have some similar projects are higher though too. But it's quite common in actually some of these players that bid for the Ford package. We've seen either the individual contractors who have been on some of our program management contracts before. So, yeah, this is quite standard to have extra staff on hand for Dallas and other folks on an on-call basis. So you might not need them full. You have an internal staff because you might not need them full time for the whole year. You have a specific task that you need for a short week or two, sometimes a month. But they also help oversee other contracts. They can bring expertise that Dallas might have on staff, but Dallas staff might be stretched a little thin if they had to try to do everything. So it's I think, an efficient way to help bring extra expertise to the set planning, design, construction, another look over the shoulder, if you will, from some great experts in Finland.
I was gonna just suggest that Dallas could work some overtime and do all this. Oh, but he's my constituent, so I don't want to say that. Okay, all right. Any other questions for Rich on item 10B? Right, is there a motion to approve action item B?
Move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Action item C. Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, 10C, we're seeking authorization to execute a contract for forklift trucks. Specifically, our procurement team reached out and the recommendation here is to work off of a cooperative agreement that has very specific criteria and stuff in there as it relates to forklift trucks. I'll just say we're overdue. We're past due, and our transit asset management program, frankly, has been screaming at us the last couple of years to go ahead and get these replaced. But we, obviously, we wanted to do it in the correct way. So what we seek here is a contract with Visa USA out of Baltimore, Maryland, for the amount stated in the recommendation, for a total amount not to exceed $421,722. This would allow us to place the order, and there's 5 forklift trucks spread out over our 2 maintenance and storage facilities, and we can see those in about a year. That's
Okay.
my summary, Mr. Chair.
Questions on that item? Is there a motion to approve action item C?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the item? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Item D, Rich.
Then D, authorization to execute a sole source contract for locomotive radiators. We're seeking authorization to execute the sole source contract with Wabtec Global Services, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, once again for locomotive radiators, in the amount stated in the resolution plus the contingency for $1,253,415. These locomotive radiator sets, once again, we received these locomotives new back in 2010, 2011. Generally speaking, in the industry, they last between about 12 to 15 years. These radiator sets a little unique to this locomotive, and of course, this locomotive is somewhat unique in the industry. There was less than 100 of them manufactured. but very specifically, the type of cooling configuration and the type of radiator configuration, if you will, is very tightly linked to our EPA certification for emissions and stuff. So we have to be very careful with this. Anyway, we did reach out to some suppliers to see if they wanted to reverse engineer, do some different things, but it was just cost prohibitive to them. Therefore, that is the reason for the sole source. That's my summary, Mr. Chair.
Okay, questions on the item? Is there a motion to approve action item D? It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair.
Ms.
Thank you.
Mr. Alcorn. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Item E, Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we're seeking authorization to extend a lease with RCKF Riverside PLP LLC for parking at the RIPPON station in the amount that's stated in the recommendation, but without a contingency. That's the actual escalated annual amount. So once again, this is a lease. I brought this back to I brought this to you last year. What we wanted to try to do and work with county staff and this developer to just kind of, is there an opportunity to, just purchase this land outright? Is there an opportunity to do something a little different? I was hoping to get a little bit further along with the developer. County staff as they are always. They're awesome to work with, but we just want to kind of bring this, maybe have a solution that might do something instead of just surface parking, maybe, a garage, maybe some retail stuff. Anyway, I'm requesting that we extend this lease and give us yet again, some time to work through this, because I think there's a long-term solution or a longer-term solution that may benefit everybody, and particularly the folks in this area. That's my summary, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Crystal?
I can imagine it's just adds too much complexity for the purposes of 1 year, but since we are really only looking 1 year at a time, is there any opportunity to right-size the amount of parking, given that ridership is down so considerably? I assume we're leasing 320 spots, but not seeing our riders use.
Exactly, yes. I mean, this is a continuation of a long-term lease that's been.
So we have no ability to flex.
Long time. And like I said, it's not likely I bring this back to you in the same form next year, just simply because, like I said, I'm requesting some time to continue to work through this. As it relates to this lease, I guess, you give me authorization to execute this lease, we'll go back and see if we can make it smaller, fewer spaces, but, well.
Potentially worth considering if it saves a few dollars. Did you may not be worth this in terms of what we're paying per spot.
Okay, Ms. Bailey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm assuming that this is the Woodbridge area. It's not.
South of Woodbridge.
It's up, yeah. So knowing where this is, on behalf of Supervisor Franklin, just thank you for the effort. It is so needed in that area because it's between my district and hers. It's an older area, so we appreciate the effort and the comment that you just made as well. On behalf of Supervisor Franklin.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Rich on this item?
So moved.
Okay. All right. Is there a second? All right. Any discussion on the motion?
Moved second.
You're welcome.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Item F, Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, item F is, this is endorsement. This is we're seeking off, the operation for endorsement of the preferred concept for Broad Run expansion project. Just as a reminder, we did an information item, gave you the presentation last month, and this is just to formalize that. the direction to focus near term on expanding some parking on the south side. And of course, expand the current yard configuration and with the associated changes to the parking, or excuse me, the platform. As a reminder, this near-term solution doesn't include the highway bridge and all the other things that we were talking about. That's something likely to be somebody else's project and something in the future. That's my summary, Mr. Chair.
Okay, questions for Rich on this? We discussed this in some detail last month, I believe.
Mhm.
All right, is there a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded by Ms. Bailey. I think you maybe beat her to it. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Item G, Rich.
Okay, item G, we're seeking a recommendation, and this is a recommendation to PRTC as it relates to a pay plan that's within the personnel policy, personnel manual. Just as a reminder, VRE staff and OmniRide staff, of course, are all one and the same, if you will, under the PRTC umbrella. So this is a recommendation, and what we want to do here, and I'll start off with some background here, and Cindy's going to come up and walk you through the salient points here. But PRTC staff, in conjunction with VRE, started about 2020, mid 2020, on a compensation classification study, and of course that work kind of chugged along. Of course, March of 2020, that was the pandemic. Anyway, so it was fun times. Fast forward to July of 2021, PRTC Commission took action on essentially the overall compensation plan study, and but they did call out in there that for VRE, particularly on our pay plan, because VRE has a lot of positions that are unique to the railroad industry and stuff, that we needed to take that out separately and do some analysis. So that's essentially what we're bringing back now, and obviously via recommendation to the board, or from the board, we'll take this to the committee. But a lot of nuances, a lot of moving parts here. So Cindy, our Chief Administrative Officer, we've got a couple slides behind this. She'll try to unpack that a little bit for you and kind of walk that through. So with that, make sure you got a clicker. Okay, cool. I can take a break.
Thank you, Rich.
So yours.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the board. So the background for this item, and Rich just gave you a lot of it, but I won't go over the dates again, but kind of where we landed was that PRTC adopted a pay plan that was recommended by Baker Tilly through the study that Rich just mentioned, but was adopted for OmniRide employees only. At that same time, VRE was authorized continued study, again, as Rich said, on specific roles, which I'll show you in a minute, that are unique to VRE as far as rail specific responsibilities. VRE engaged the same consultant, Baker Tilly, for this purpose. And the study basically was developed was to see if we needed to actually have that separate pay plan. So when we're talking about pay plans, so we're all thinking the same thing. Draw your attention there to that little blue box, but it's a framework for providing fair and transparent compensation for all employees. It has usually pay grades with minimum and maximum pay bands or pay rates, and then positions are assigned on that up to those grades. So that is the process then. This is the proposed pay plan that came out of our work with Baker Tilly, and it's got 40 pay grades, and as I said, it has both minimum and maximum pay rates. And so you have this in your board packet. So the methodology to get here, how do we get to that pay plan? Baker Tilly used the position reviews and the market data that were established in the initial study and brought it forward. They aged it forward. So we're only looked at the 9 positions that you see here on the screen. And then the same process was followed as the first study. And that includes job description reviews, position reviews, which is internal equity, where you're looking at internal equity, market assessment, which is looking at external equity, pay plan development, and then position assignments within those pay plans. And as a result, all that was merged together. So all the old data, all of the new data to come up with data for just specific to VRE. We found that the study was extremely impactful. There were 7 of the 9 positions that were reevaluated, scored higher in the second evaluation. And then 27 of the 41 positions that VRE, titles that VRE has, were assigned to pay grades that varied from the original study. So that was to us indicative of the fact that we did in fact need to do the supplemental review to identify a competitive and equitable plan for VRE. Oh, I went too far. Sorry, Rich. And that's all I have. I did want to share, sorry, the way, if this is adopted, I know I almost forgot. It's very important to maintain the program. Otherwise you're going to be right back in the same spot. So we kind of have a 2-step approach to that. One is that we can use Baker Tilly's, they have a job evaluation process that we used for this. And it's important to keep job descriptions updated, make sure that if any positions are repurposed, that we actually go back and run through that system. So we'll do that to make sure that they're always, reflected in the pay plan in the right spot. And then obviously looking at market data on a regular basis to see if there are changes in the market. So we've got that plan in place. Should this be adopted?
Okay, questions on this item? Ms. Bailey?
Not a question, but just a comment. Cindy, thank you, Rich, for doing this. This is something that I think is going around in the region, just to make sure that we maintain this great talent that we have, and expertise that we have here working for us. So this is very impactful, but very necessary as well to make sure that things keep going. And so thank you for just kind of bringing it to our attention, because we look at the projects, but we sometimes don't appreciate and look at the talent. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay, Mr. McLaughlin.
Yes, we're still staffing up. We have employees, we're trying to get to 70, 80, but we'll have to some help. We're finding that we're making good offers to people, and they're not only getting updated by the private sector, which is something to be expected, also by other government entities as well. So we understand that you're not always going to get the people that might want to work for, make a lot of money. You want to have that happy medium, people that feel pride and especially the capital programs that we're doing and the service that we're providing, but yet still be competitive. Simply 100, 200 grand on the table, you want to be competitive. So I think this is important that you're doing this. Unfortunately, there's a lot of competition out there for talent, especially as we're ramping up. And other states now have money. We have funding in Virginia, but other states with IIJ are going to have money too. So the competition is going to get more fierce. So it's important that we have involving people to not only run the projects, but help with the financing and all the other things that go along with providing construction, engineering, and operations.
Thank you, Chair. I was curious, did this study look at anything beyond just compensation? Was there any comment on other benefits or other elements?
Just compensation.
I guess the follow-up would then be, is there a way that we or VRE is taking this information and then layering it into like their benefit policy, just to follow up on sort of that competition point?
Yeah, you could do that. I will say that we do provide people when we're making offers a full, and it's not exactly what you asked, but we do give them like a full view of all their benefits and what that's worth. And, because we have pretty robust benefit program.
Yeah,
we could certainly look at it. Yeah.
It's something that just, from coming from my jurisdiction, we're trying to focus on compensation, but also make clear, the other benefits that come with it, because oftentimes that can be a difference maker. We recently discovered that pet insurance is offered in Alexandria, and everybody kind of went, oh my goodness. So you never know what's going to.
Private market?
What's that?
In the private market or?
The cities.
Like an Alexandria employee benefit. There was a reference to like an option for pet insurance.
Well, I need to work there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. People flipped out. So anyway, just, however we can layer that in to make it.
I'll just follow up. This obviously, this is a pretty heavy lift to get through and reestablish the baseline. So being able to go out and do some comparators and that type of stuff on benefits, comparatively speaking, is a little bit easier lift, and it's on Cindy's list somewhere.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Okay, Ms. Crystal?
So, speaking of things that were not within the scope of the study, but it prompts questions for me. Do we as VRE or in partnership with PRTC engage in any kind of ongoing studies about affirmatively furthering our EEO goals? Do we do a barrier analysis or affirmative action plans on a regular basis? And is that something that we look to an external consultant like Baker Tilly to do, or is it done in-house?
Related to equity, yeah.
Yeah, we do have, we have an EEO plan and we do work with PRTC. And so I think the affirmative action plan, but you'll have to answer that because I think that was, PRTC handles it, but I think it was and then wasn't and is, so.
We do
I'm
it.
not sure where we are.
We do it in collaboration,
Yeah.
cooperation together. So it's, the answer to your question is yes, it's an active process.
That's great. It may be helpful for us as the operations board to check in on that. We usually get a presentation on it. I know that's something we talk about back in our jurisdiction as well. As we talk to make sure that particularly pathways and promotions, that we're aware of what the barriers may be. It's yielded some interesting things over time, right? And whether we actually need a bachelor's degree, for example, to be in, certain fields, the barriers are sometimes easier to tackle than we might otherwise think. So thank you.
My colleague Holly is actually working on some formatting for that very thing we have it, but we want to present it in a different way to Rich.
Okay, so we'll look to add a presentation on that to an upcoming. Okay.
Yeah, shouldn't be solely for my benefit, but I think it's useful to other people.
Other questions? All right, is there a motion to approve action item G?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Bagley and seconded by Mr. Alcorn. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yes.
The motion carries. Final item, information item, spending authority report. Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one item that qualified for the spending authority report, and it's a task order that we issued to STB under the TPC consulting service contract for support over the next 24 months for on-call services. So that was it.
Okay, any questions for Rich on that? All right, operation board members time. Why don't we start right here with Ms. Bagley? Go around that way.
I had a nice ride on the system with my bike. So just I was one of those bike members. So that's it.
All right.
Yes.
Yes. Pass.
So I maybe could have mentioned this earlier, but Rich and I had a good meeting with Amtrak, CSX recently to talk about construction projects that are going to be coming up in the next couple of years. For instance, the Alexandria Ford-Track project, which is tied in with the Alexandria EV station project, will be going into the light next year. And we agreed with Amtrak and CSX to be communicative to riders. That may change the schedule a few minutes here and there. I think people just want to know when we're going to get there so they can plan accordingly. So I want to let people know that we are coordinating together. And this affects things not just in Virginia, but up and down the East Coast. This train is late coming in the Union Station, New York, Penn Station, the domino effects up and down the border. So we are working well in advance to CSX agreed that we need to take part in the schedule. So people just want to know if the table's going to be, because construction is going for 2 to 3 years. They don't want to be 20 minutes late every day for 2 to 3 years. So we'll try to minimize the taxes as much as possible as well. That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
I actually just, I just want to get back to the legislative thing, the partnership with the VRE staff. We had some issues with WMATA as well, VRE getting some legislative package with the GA. It's really a good solid partnership, and yes, with the Commonwealth as well. So I really appreciate Rich and his team's coordination.
Thank you. Mr. Stork.
Pass.
I just want to thank Rich and the team for Broad Run expansion. I was distracted by a text when we voted on it, but we've been talking about this project for literally years, right?
Yes.
And I'm really impressed that you were able to design what we just endorsed, considering the airport and everything else going on there. So kudos to your work.
Great team.
You do. Thank you, Dallas.
Ms. Franklin.
I think I'll just say this is the shortest meeting I've ever been to.
Made it just in time. All right, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your time today. We're less than an hour, and without objection, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Your impact.